Hi, Kashi. Are you able to hear
Hi,
me?
Kat. Yep. Can you see me? Can you hear me well?
I can see you and I can hear you well.
Perfect.
Welcome to Expert Hours. We're doing this for the first time now.
Something new. It reminds me of our first episode of Office Hours.
It
Wait,
does feel that
like
way. By the way, I
something
think we
new.
did our first episode of Office Hours at the same time as we're doing this Expert Hours,
I
like in March
know,
as well.
yeah.
So that
I
does
know. Something new
that
every
does
year. Some-
exactly. Exactly. Okay, so for everyone who's new to our webinars, we always give about a minute or two for everyone to join, especially because we have people joining from, well, all over the world. So we're going to give about a minute or two or so for everyone to join, and then we're going to get started with our topic. So just a little bit of a heads up, and then we'll do the introduction as needed.
I have to ask, Kat, what's the weather like today in Belgrade? I
It's actually very
have
sunny.
to ask. Sorry?
It's actually very sunny. It is very
Oh,
warm. It's very sunny, and I'm very happy about it.
amazing.
That
I wish
means
it was the same. It snowed here last night, but it's
it
sunny. So
snowed.
it's a win.
Yeah, but that's expected for Montreal, though.
Yeah, I thought we had it's full spring, as one would say right now. So I thought we were past the snow, but apparently not.
Whenever I tell people I grew up in Canada, they always ask me, "Did you like the snow?" And I am always like, "I grew up in Vancouver. We don't know what that is."
A lot of
There
snow
was,
in Vancouver these days, though. That's actually like
yeah,
baffling to me because I used to think there was no snow in Vancouver, but now there is. So
yeah,
that's global warming for you.
yeah, exactly. A bit more time, and we see the weather changing quite a bit. Even in Serbia, the same thing, and the weather is so weird right now. And for March, it's usually colder than it actually is supposed to be. But anyways, okay.
No complaints whatsoever.
It's been a couple of minutes. I do want to jump in right away so that we're not wasting too much time. And then, of course, because the experts are being recorded, you will have, of course, a moment to watch the video once we actually post it on our website. So you will be able to see that as well. A couple of things. First of all, to everyone who's new, thank you so much for joining. My name is Kat. I work here in Vacation Tracker in operations and support. And we, of course, have Kushi, who's a part of our lovely marketing team, helping me out, my partner in crime, in these calls. So, expert hours is a little bit different than what we usually do. This is something new we wanted to introduce and we wanted to try out. We originally have our office hours that we do that relate specifically to Vacation Tracker and the usage of Vacation Tracker and the features. Um, and expert hours, we're focusing more on HR topics themselves and a bit less on features and things like that. We will have a couple of minutes where we're just going to mention, of course, a few things inside of Vacation Tracker, how you're able to do a few of these settings, set up a few of these settings, but we're going to focus mostly on the actual topic itself. First of all, we also want to mention really quickly that, well, two things. One, we're using Zoho Webinar. So for anyone who's new to the platform itself, you guys are going to have a Q&A section that you may see on the left hand side, and we have a poll section that you're going to see as well. So this is something that you can, of course, access and send out your questions. We're only able to see them, and if we do have time, we'll go over those questions. As for the polls, these are just questions that help us get a little bit of a feeling of how the episode went, and if it's something that's helpful for you as well. Any feedback is really helpful for us, especially for the future episodes. A second piece that I wanted to mention really quickly is we saw a kind of a jump in the registrations yesterday evening when we sent our follow-up to our especially to our existing clientele as well. And so we just want to note that we originally sent the invite to our existing clientele with a few other information. So I guess it was probably missed when we sent out the follow-up. A bunch of people registered, and so we'll be significantly more careful next time. We'll send you guys a very separate invite. We weren't aware how excited you will be to join the expert hours, so we'll send you a separate invite next time, a much more obvious one for the expert hours. That being said, the topic that we're focusing on today is giving additional benefits and satisfying legal requirements. And we're talking about a topic that has been brought up a lot over the last few years when I've spoken to a lot of HR managers and management in general that's been focusing on leave policies. So first things first, I'm going to share my screen. Now, we did, for anyone who, again, comes to our webinars, you used to be able to kind of send out a little emoji to let us know if you're able to see this. We've turned this option off just for this webinar so we don't take away and there's no distractions. So I'm going to share my screen, and Kushi, you'll be my
Yep, I will be your
if you're
physical
able to
thumbs
see it.
up.
Yeah.
Nothing yet, so.
All right. Let me know.
Yep, we're good to go.
All right, wonderful. So that being said, the topic we're covering, again, additional benefits, satisfying legal requirements. What does this mean? We had a lot of questions coming in from management about trying to make sure that the leave policies that they're introducing are both satisfying what the law needs, and also they're giving the proper benefits to their employees. And when we talk about this topic, it's something that has been asked all across the board, whether it's a large or small company, whether it's the different kind of industries all over the world. It's been a general kind of question when these types of benefits are created and how they should be created and introduced. So that's the reason why we started off with this topic itself. When it comes down to one note, when it comes down to these out or these this week's webinars, we're trying to choose topics that we've had experience with, that have been asked, that we've heard over time, but we definitely want to receive your feedback. So if you have any other ideas, especially in the polls, definitely put in your feedback about what else you would like to hear about, so that we can create the episodes more according to your guys' needs. That being said, when it comes down to this office hours, we try to provide you with as much information as we possibly can, especially with these types of topics. We did a lot of our own research, pulled out a lot of surveys, a lot of studies, and of course used our own leave laws sources that we have on Vacation Tracker to provide all this information. But I do want you guys to know that this presentation is still for educational purposes only, and definitely any information that you do receive, check and make sure that it matches the legal advice that you're maybe going to receive from appropriate legal authorities and government agencies. So even though we're talking about these, we did our due diligence and we're talking about these topics, definitely make sure that it matches exactly what you would need for the country that you're in and for your own case. One thing I do want to mention is I know that there was a few people who registered a bit late, but we did see the questions that came in. We do have one from one of our existing clients that I'm going to talk about, of course, at the end, and a couple of other ones that we're going to cover. So we'll leave that for the end, and we'll discuss those ones as well. All right, so first things first, getting over to dividing the understanding between what a legal minimum is and what is additional benefit and what we're referring to when we're talking about this. So most importantly, a legal minimum is any policies that you have to give to the employees based on the country's laws, whether it's federal laws or whether it's state or territory or provincial, of course, depending on where you live. These laws and regulations are there, of course, to protect the employees. And so the country always gives you this kind of minimum that you're dealing with and that you're working with. And as much as it's important, of course, to satisfy the minimum in order to give as much respect to the employees, it's also important to have this kind of additional benefit that's going to increase not only productivity, but it's going to make the employees feel better and feel safer inside the company itself. When we talk about the legal minimum, I do want to mention one piece that's important. Although there are laws and regulations that refer when it comes down to minimum leave policies, especially for paid time off, there's also a few other things that you should always check, and that's provisions, entitlements of specific employees, contracts, agreements, and sector-specific regulations. This is also important. There's a lot of countries that we work with. When you're looking at different kind of industries and different sectors, you're seeing different leave policies, different leave minimums all across the board. So this is something that we've noticed as well over time, and it's important to kind of keep in mind, especially with your own industry. And then most importantly, of course, you want to consult with the relevant agencies to ensure that the information you're receiving, whether it's from these webinars or whether it's online, you want to make sure it's correct and that it fits your guys' requirements, again, for your industry, for the country you are in. and so forth. So that's the legal minimum when we talk about leave policies. The additional benefit is something that we're seeing now becoming more and more common, where we are introducing additional leave categories such as personal leave. This is something that's becoming more popular over time, where you are now introducing personal leave, and employees being able to take this leave um, on top of their pay time off, and getting a bucket of it of their own quota for personal leave for whatever they need to do, and we'll talk more about that. Additional quota to the provided quota, so this is another additional benefit, adding more days than the minimum requires. Instead of the minimum 10, you're going to be offering 15 days, right? It's a very simple kind of benefit. And then some other benefits focusing on further education and professional development. So this is something that I think is quite important to, it's becoming more and more important, I'm feeling over time. I know that it's important to me. I was a bit of that nerd in elementary school, then I stopped during puberty, and then I hit back in university time. So for me, any type of further education and development is so important. And I love the whole classes and taking tests. I'm not a it's not a
Someone who's yeah, someone who's an academic, like, lover, validation lover, seeker, such as myself,
yeah.
I would agree. So,
For sure, for sure. And I
that's
think it means a lot. So these types of benefits, we're now noticing more and more companies introducing those as well, where people are able to take time off, whether they have an exam that they have to finish, or maybe some sort of course that they're taking, in order to work a bit more on their own position, or maybe a position they would like to achieve in the company, right? So these types of benefits, that's also something additional. It's not a minimum requirement, but you can go above and beyond, right? And we'll talk more about why that's so important as well, when it comes down to these types of benefits. We're going to talk about a few surveys and studies that we've researched ourselves. You can of course find those yourselves as well, and definitely find out more about that, where you have information on how important it has been to provide these additional benefits, not only to retain employees, but also to be able to compete in the industry for the best employees, for the top employment. Let's focus specifically now on the legal minimum. And what we're going to do is I pulled out a few countries around the world, and we pulled out examples for the legal minimums and the additional benefits that could possibly apply. The reason why we're doing this is because we're very well aware that well, anyone who's watching, especially our clientele who's all over the world, you guys have different minimums and different additional benefits that you may want to introduce. So we're giving you these examples so that you're able to kind of work with it and find one that's maybe closer to home. Um, and again, you don't have to even take the examples that we're offering you. You can take the same sample and the way that we did this research ourselves, and do it for yourself as well for the location you belong to. So again, the legal minimum we're referring to, we're talking about laws and regulations, whether it's federal, whether it's state, doesn't really matter. We're talking about entitlements, individual employees. I mean, this piece, when it comes to the contracts agreements, that's tough. That, of course, can be per employee. So that's not something we're going to be referring to. And then, of course, making sure this information is correct with the relevant agencies. Taking this into consideration, we're going to take a look at UK specifically as the first to go, when it comes down to these different leave types. And we took 4 leave types that are maybe the most common across the board. They're all a little bit different from each other, but at the same time, I think give a nice picture of what we're talking about here. So the first leave type, of course, being vacation days, aka what's usually being used for the paid time off. Having the 28-day minimum is what is a requirement in the UK, according to the research that we've done. We have the leave type sick leave up to 28 weeks. I do want to note regarding this up to 28 weeks period when we're talking about sick leave, because this is going to be something I think is going to come up in another country as well. And that's the fact that you are eligible to apply for a long-term sick leave. And this is what this up to 28 weeks is referring to. It's not specifically referring to being a day or two away because you maybe have the flu. So this is something where you would have to apply, you would have to have doctor's notes, you'd have to have a reason as to why you will be away for some longer period of time. And so we can definitely see where this can also be an improvement when we're talking about introducing different kinds of additional benefits. The next one is leave type being maternity. So 52 weeks total, and 39 of those weeks have to be paid. 12 weeks do not have to be paid. So you can still apply for the total amount. Someone who is going on maternity leave can be gone for the full 52 weeks, but 39 weeks are paid, and then you got 12 unpaid. What's interesting here is we were taking a look at a few studies specifically when it comes down to parental leave in general. And we found a report that was done by the International Labor Organization where they focused on paid parental leave and how much it positively influenced employees, both their morale and engagement. And this completely makes sense. Just, speaking from experience of having new moms around me that I was working with, it means a lot when you know you have that kind of safety when you go on maternity leave, especially because in your personal life you already have something new happening, something unexpected. And so I think that it significantly helps when you know that your company is taking care of you in that sense. And so when we're talking about 52 weeks total, 39 paid, unpaid, we can definitely again see somewhere where we can create some sort of improvement for this. Yes, there's a minimum that we have to satisfy, but what can we do that can help them out feel a little bit better about leaving the job, coming back, assimilating, and so forth. And then jury duty, this is generally an unpaid leave. We took it as a good example of something that's maybe a leave type that's not applicable everywhere. Not all countries have jury duty. It doesn't work the same way all across the board. So we want to take a leave that's maybe similar to some but not to others. So that's as an example. Unpaid leave. This is something where the employee may or may not have to go for this leave. It's one of those kind of unexpected leaves, and so it's a good example of maybe, let's say, unexpected leave. That's how probably I would call that and name that. Um, as for and that was the overview of the UK when it comes down to the legal necessity. Now we're going to take a look at UK, but with the additional benefits that we're thinking of, and this is something that we're just kind of giving as an idea. Of course, this is not something that has to be applied or it doesn't have to go exactly the way that we're referring it to. There can be different ways that you can think of when it comes down to additional benefits. So coming back to what additional benefits are, we're talking about, okay, either additional leave categories, so we're talking about new leave types, or we're talking about additional quota to what we have, paid benefits, or maybe some sort of other type of benefit that focuses specifically on growth inside the company or for that employee itself. And so when we take a look at additional benefits in UK, we can take a look at a leave type vacation specifically and talk about paid bank holidays. Why specifically for the UK is because the minimum does not require for companies in the UK to pay for bank holidays as well. So this 28 days does not have to include bank holidays. It's only including to their vacation. They don't have to pay for bank holidays. The common practice that we're seeing is more and more companies paying for bank holidays and offering that as an option, but that's exactly why now all of a sudden it's an additional benefit, because you're kind of going above and beyond. And the reason why they're choosing to do this is simple as well. It's one of those situations where, again, you're offering a bit more. I mean, who doesn't want to be off for a bank holiday with their family while they're also now
No one
working
ever.
and
Exactly.
get paid at the same time, right? So this is one of those, I think, scenarios where you can up it a little bit over just introducing something as simple as that. Of course, there's an option of introducing more days, but that's a question of if it fits the company, and we'll talk about that as well. Leave type sick leave, up to 28 weeks. They have a pretty solid amount here when it comes down to these 28 weeks. But again, this is referring to up to long term leave to the maximum. We're not talking about kind of these 2-3 days that they may be sick, like flu or a cold. And this is something that can also be introduced: 2-3 paid sick days that you can take without bringing in a doctor's note, without having to go and explain yourself for a very long time as to why you're away. And again, something that's becoming more and more important, and we're noticing a lot of employees really appreciating. We'll talk about that in the Canadian example. Leave type maternity. So this is a good example. We've talked about this: 39 paid, 12 unpaid. So additional paid maternity leave, or if that's not an option for the company because of funding or whatever else may be the reason, maybe there's something else that you can introduce here that we've seen and we've talked about with a lot of clientele and of course overall, and that's some sort of a simulation that can help them when they're coming back to work, right? So if it's a new parent coming back to work and all of a sudden, they need to work that full time, should they get a few additional days, bonus days that they can take off and not worry while they're simulating coming back to work? So again, kind of thinking outside of the box, seeing what's the best fit for both the company policy and for that employee to make them feel good, again, about coming back to work, about their leave in general, right? Feeling comfortable about coming back and being away. And of course, the option of introducing a personal leave. I mean, this is something that also is an option where you're saying, okay, let's add a little bit more of the personal leave inside the company, where people are able to take a couple of days off just for themselves without going on a vacation. I'm saying this for a specific example. I'm a good person that never understood, like a good example of a person that never understood personal leave until recently, because I've noticed that I've taken more and more of my vacation days to deal with personal things that I have to actually go on vacations. And
Well,
so I
honestly, I
think,
feel like that's the best part. Like everyone's definition of personal is so subjective. Like whatever for you, it might be dealing with family matters. For someone, it might be a mental health day. So I think that's a great benefit to have as well.
yes, exactly. Because you good example, because mental health day is something that again we're seeing more and more companies introducing as a new leave type for a reason. It's just a good thing for you to know that you have in the bank a couple of days where you can take off without explaining why you're going away. We're seeing a lot of people saying, "Hey, leave the reason optional," right? We don't want the employees writing why they're going to be away. And this is one of those scenarios that I think is again a good example where I'm even saying, okay, well, this is actually becoming a more useful leave type, especially with the idea of trying to have a healthy work life balance. Now, this was the UK. We went through the example of the legal and the additional benefit. We're not going to do the exact same, but we're going to just go through a couple of more examples of the few other countries that we have on the list. So first one up, we have USA and we have specifically Texas. We're focusing on a state here because of the different federal and state laws and legislations that can happen. So specifically for Texas, we have a leave type vacation, again, not required. So there's no minimum here that's required. Most common practice for private companies in the state is about 10 days, aka 2 weeks paid, but that's some sort of kind of common practice that's been introduced. Sick leave, again, you can apply for about 12 up to 12 weeks, maternity up to 12 weeks, and then jury duty, same as the previous, so unpaid leave. Uh, we have a lot more to work with here when we're talking about additional benefits. Um, but that also brings up a question of, is it a competitive market then when it comes down to finding new employees, because you don't have a minimum that you're dealing with, so you can actually work in some sort of additional benefits that are gonna get you employees, and really kind of use that as a buy-in for those types of employees, and of course for attention as well. Again, when it comes down to the traditional benefits here, we can talk about strong paid vacation policy. So of course, introducing a minimum that's not just the most commonly used, like the 2-week period, but something a bit more, such as additional days to that paid time off. Most importantly, paid maternity leave. I mean, we just talked about how important it is. There's studies proving how important it is for new parents to feel safe about the fact that they're going on this kind of long-term leave, and it's something that really makes them feel much better about the company, and makes them feel much better about their own job. And so this is something that's really important. Just having some sort of paid leave would be important when it comes down to maternity. And then, of course, sick leave, again, mentioned in the UK example, where you need at least a few days to be able to know that you can step back, relax, take time for yourself, fix yourself up, and of course, then come back to work healthy and feeling refreshed, right? So this is again maybe an example of an extreme, but I like it, and the reason why we took it is because it can show different rules across the board, and maybe everyone's going to be able to find something that fits their needs a bit better. Taking a look at Canada and Quebec specifically, we had to choose Quebec. I mean, our
Of
head office is
course.
there, so
Of course.
it would be illogical if we didn't do this. So we're taking a look at, again, in Canada, specifically Quebec. Provincial laws, again, very different. Hence why we're focusing on, we're talking about Quebec specifically. Vacation, 10 days, 2 weeks minimum after 1 year of service. That means that the employees there actually have to work for a full year, and then you're actually going to get your 10 days to use in the following year. So we'll talk about that. That's a good example of additional benefit, without adding the days, but just giving a little bit of a little bit of flexibility. Sick leave up to 26 weeks. Again, what we talked about in the UK section, this is long-term sick leave, 2 days paid in the context of, hey, I have the flu, I just need to I need to step away for 1 or 2 days. Leave type maternity, 83 weeks total, 18 weeks paid, 65 weeks unpaid, and then jury duty unpaid leave, as it usually is for that type of leave type. So what can be added on here, and what we're seeing actually more and more companies do, is of course an increase in the pay leave. So we're seeing more and more companies increase this kind of pay leave from 10 days to 15 days, or offer things such as earning more days depending on the role that you have applied to. And we're seeing companies definitely use this as an advantage to compete for new employment, or to ensure that they're keeping up the retention, right? So this is something that is already happening, and I think there's a reason to it. 10 days, when you take a look at the kind of the full year aspect, is quite small, especially now that more and more, as you know, we're looking at things in 2024. People are more and more used to having this kind of healthy work-life balance and having more time. But more importantly, this kind of after 1 year of service, this is a good example just from our own, even our own company, as a Quebec company, as an example. We made things a little bit different here. Instead of saying, hey, after 1 year of service, we said, you know what, we're going to prorate the amount no matter what. We have a 3 to 6 month probation period when a person is starting in general, but you're going to be able to already request some days even before the 1 year of service happens, right? And so this is a small change, but it means a lot. It means a lot. And of course, we added the days because, well, we can't be a vacation tracking company without having a strong leave type policy. So this is something that we also introduce ourselves. For stronger sick leave policy, this is also something we're noticing a lot more, not only through our own research with our own clientele, but also of the industry, and of course of the surveys and the studies that we researched for this topic itself. We're seeing that a lot more companies are now offering more of these kind of 2 days paid sick leave. So instead of 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, because it's meaning a lot more to employees. And again, something that's been brought up, and we're seeing this kind of change. So that's something that's also a competitive advantage there as well. And then, of course, a stronger maternity leave policy, 18 weeks paid, maybe some sort of increase from it being for there being more weeks that need to be paid, or maybe some sort of, again, increase or introduction of some sort of a simulation leave type, where the new parent is able to feel more comfortable about coming back to work, or having to stay at home for whatever reason it is. 18 weeks is quite a short time when you take a look at the span. And, we're saying 18 weeks sounds a lot, and divided and you find out how many months it is. It's really, it's really not.
Really not a lot.
And then as for jury duty, again, I mean, unpaid leave, this is one of those kind of um, locations that require you to have and allow jury duty. You may have a leave type like that, where it can be unpaid. You can maybe offer a pay leave, or you can leave it there, but at least to have an option for that kind of emergency leave. And then our last location, we got India, that actually has probably, out of all the examples we saw, they have the nicest kind of minimum, especially for vacation days. We get 25 days. Those are 18 vacation and 7 casual leave. They can be divided. They can be put together. We've seen companies from India do both, right? Put it all together or divide it, depending on what the employees are applying for. That being said, these 25 days, this is a good example of a country that has very different minimums depending on the industries. And so this is a really good example of, depending on the location inside of the country and depending on the industry, you may have a different minimum. We took the most common one from a few different, from the most common industries, let's put it that way, but there's definitely a difference there. And so this is a good example, depending on where you're from, to also keep in mind. Sick leave up to 12 days, maternity 26 weeks total. Of course, this is all paid. And then jury duty, they don't have a need for this leave type. They have other leave types that they have a need for, that's maybe specifically related to specific for that location, right? And again, when it comes down to these, we're talking about minimums here and the legal necessities. What about the additional benefits? So again, like I said, their leave type for vacations is quite strong, but we can introduce, and we've seen them introduce, a lot of seniority-based entitlement. A lot of companies introducing seniority-based entitlement, saying, okay, well, we have a pretty strong policy. This is all across the board. Anyone has a strong policy. We have a pretty strong policy. What else can we introduce that can make the employees feel a bit more a bit better, and make them feel like they're growing towards something inside the company, right? So seniority based entitlement is basically earning the leave depending on how long you've been in the company for. And so this is something that you are able to do by earning additional days based on the years. introducing personal leaves. So this is talking about a new leave type, something a bit different than what you already have when you have such a strong leave policy. And then compensatory leave, again, a more and more popular option, where we're talking about introducing a leave type where they're able to earn additional leave based on overtime worked. So this is again something we're seeing more and more of, companies saying, okay, instead of a payout, we're just going to allow you to um, uh, get the number of days and number of hours you've worked overtime added to your quota, or added to a different leave type that you can use over time. Now, we've gone over the examples, and we've gone over the details and some of the samples that you're able to use and kind of create your own version of this for the location that you belong to, for the industry that you belong to, and see what best you can do. And now we want to talk about just moving on to how you would actually communicate this with leadership. And the funny thing is, we actually have a lot of people who applied for the webinar, and we were taking a look at the different titles. We got a lot of HR and accounting, of course, but we also have some C-level management. So maybe you're the leadership that they need to talk to. But that being said, this still is something that's really important, because that's kind of a question that I've been asked a lot over the last few years. And it's been kind of, okay, well, how do I translate these kind of needs that we're all aware of? We're aware that over the time that has happened, especially after COVID-19, even the idea of the millennials have, where they're wanting more work-life balance, this is all affecting the business industry. And so we're seeing this kind of shift towards more of these additional benefits, more of this work-life balance, and that's causing a shift in what HR needs to be able to introduce for these employees, whether they're existing employees or new employees. Some of you may be already aware of the total awards model, basically used. It, it takes 5 pillars. It takes a look at those 5 pillars, and then it creates the best kind of offer for the employee, which is going to make sure to, again, retain employees, engage the employees, and then, of course, attract new employees. And we're taking a look, those 5 pillars that we're taking a look at is compensation, benefits, work-life, performance, recognition. I kind of cut it down. There's different views of the total rewards model, but it all kind of breaks down to this. There's, of course, more detailed topics as well, but it really breaks down to this, where you used to have much more of a focus on compensation, recognition, and performance. Now, all of a sudden, you're seeing much more of a focus on benefits and work life, and then the following, which is compensation, recognition, and performance from the employee perspective. And so this is why we're talking about how important it is, that kind of work-life balance, how important it is to provide better benefits for the employees. And benefits really do include different leave types and different options, something that maybe has not really been discussed that much in the past, because it maybe wasn't something that was that traditional compensation need, right, of making sure that the salary is high enough. Now you have companies competing not only with the salary, but they're competing with the benefits that they're going to offer, and employees are definitely looking into that. There's a lot of research that we did ourselves during this time, and I definitely I'm definitely one of those people that truly believes doing your kind of due diligence with the studies helps make a really good argument with all of this. We took a look at a bunch of studies. One I already mentioned regarding the ILO, talking about parental leave. We took look at a lot of studies that were done post-COVID in order to see kind of that shift with the employee mindset, caring much more about work-life balance, caring much more about leave types. And all of these studies are just really important, because it's going to help you make your case for leadership much more. It's gonna make your case much stronger, because you're going to be able to say, hey, listen, this is where the business world is going towards. This is what it's going towards, and this is where the industry is going towards. We need to ensure that our employees are happy in order to keep up with our company goals, right, and policies. And so one of those things that I would definitely kind of advise is definitely do your due diligence. We did pull a lot of studies and a lot of information ourselves that we'd be more than happy to provide if necessary. But definitely do it yourself as well, especially because, again, I talk about different locations, different countries. It's very important to take a look at your own location and focus on that one as well. Now, this is something that I'm going to kind of quickly just go over and glance over, because we actually built a very useful tool thanks to our marketing team regarding communicating these kind of necessities to leadership. And I think that that's something that we just kind of wanted to introduce so that everyone has that tool and they're able to use it in order to make their own business case if they need to. And just there's a few steps. We kind of cut it down to about 10 steps where we talk about how you can create a business case to leadership to explain the necessity of all of this and to explain the change you would want to introduce. And so first things first, of course, and that's understanding management's goals. And this also refers to, of course, the company. What are your policies? What are your general goals? Which direction is the company going in, right? So this is an important piece. Research and benchmark. Make sure you do your due diligence, as I mentioned. Quantify the benefits. Anything that you want to introduce as a benefit, make sure that you have some sort of numbers behind it. As someone who's been in operations, I know how I look at these things. As someone who has to present this information to C-levels in multiple roles that I've been in, they all look at numbers. We all look at numbers. So make sure you're quantifying everything that you're doing. A link to employee engagement. This is an important piece. Of course, make sure that you're tying all of the information that you're bringing to the kind of how much it's going, what it's going to mean for your current employees and employee engagement, and how much it's going to make them feel, how it's going to make them feel about their current status in the company as well. Legal compliance, of course, incredibly important. I know I keep saying that throughout this webinar, but very important to ensure that you guys are satisfying the kind of minimum. Cost benefit analysis, always a good tool to use to just kind of break down, hey, listen, maybe we're going to be spending a little bit more money on these a few additional benefits, but this is what it's going to give us, and this is what it's going to make the employees feel this is what's going to make the employees feel better, right? Employee feedback, constantly receiving that feedback from the employees. Create pilot programs, also a great option. Test it out for a few months. Always it's better with these types of programs for them to be a little bit longer rather than shorter. And then, of course, creating a comprehensive proposal and then building a business case, which you're going to be showing all over to higher management. So again, I kind of went through it quickly. These are the steps that we've created that we've seen work well when we're communicating something, especially when it comes down to introducing things like new leave policies or anything that's affecting the employees. And so I think this is one of those tools that could help if you're not really sure where to get started with this or how to approach it. Again, we're coming from the idea that I've had a lot of companies ask me about how to, communicate. I've even had some companies call me along with their management so I can convince them. So we've done it all at this point. That being said, you then want to make sure that you're introducing the policy that fits your needs. And your needs, I think, is an important piece here. Every company is going to have a different kind of policy that's going to be the best fit for them. At the end of the day, for example, companies that don't do any type of overtime work, there's absolutely no need to introduce something like comp time or overtime work because the employees will not be using it, right? So there's certain things that won't make sense for your industry, for your location, for your company. Also company goals, right? If the company has a specific goal and the new leave policies don't match, it's not gonna match well. It's not gonna go well. So that's something to really definitely keep in mind. At the end of the day, you want to kind of divide it into two. You want to make sure you have a proper introduction and communication with both your leadership. Make sure that that business case is solid. Make sure that you understood the employees about their needs. Make sure that you understood the goals that the company needs, and then create the proper policy that you require. And then, of course, then moving over to proper application. How are you going to ensure that it's applied and that it's used? You want to make sure that you're training all of the management so that they know how to communicate to the employees. Of course, HR should be aware of the policy. I'm assuming that we're speaking to HR when we're talking about this, but if we're not, they definitely should be involved in new policies. And then how you're going to communicate this: emails, announcements, handbooks, meetings, all different again, communication tools that your company specifically uses, right? What we've also seen really be useful when it comes down to these types of communications is these kind of tutorials or ongoing trainings, even office hours with HR, where employees can feel comfortable coming in and talking to their management or their HR about the benefits that they have. And I mean, this is something that's important. It's one of those scenarios where I think the employees definitely want to know, hey, what are my possibilities? What can I use, and how can I use those leave types, right? And then most importantly, keep in mind this policy that you're introducing is a living document. And so it constantly changes depending on the feedback from the employees, depending on the laws that are changing, right? So make sure you're always up to date. One of the questions that we got asked by one of our teams is actually related to these types of kind of laws and regulations in different places. So make sure that you're kind of up to date. Make sure that you're making the necessary adjustments depending on what you need. Especially again, like I said, employee feedback I think is important here to make sure maybe once a year or so this is something that can be useful. So before we get to the questions, we do have a couple of questions that we want to answer that were related to this topic. I'm going to do a quick 1-2 minute presentation to just show you how you can actually do all of what we mentioned in vacation tracker. And when I'm referring to using vacation tracker, I'm referring to making sure that you are setting up these kind of minimal legal requirements, such as, for example, accruing of the leave, and making sure that you have the different leave types that you need to in order to be able to set up the different quotations. One thing, Kushi, by the way, just let me know you're able to see the vacation
Yep,
tracker on
yep,
screen
I
now,
see
right?
it.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Thank you. So what we introduced in vacation tracker that was important to us and important to our clients, of course, was the ability to create different leave types, and then of course to set up those leave types not only for one location but also for multiple locations, depending on where all of their offices are and their employees are. And the reason why we do this is because there are companies who will only be focusing on one leave policy all across the board, but there are companies who will have to focus on multiple different leave policies and different holidays all across the board, depending on where their employees are. And so this kind of core of the leave tracking that we focused on. Of course, when we go into the settings themselves, we're also talking about accruals, right? Something that's in prorating, something that's quite important for the core of leave tracking and the kind of minimal requirement, right? Making sure the quota is there, making sure that if it's a legal requirement, which it is in some countries, that you allow them to have a brought forward amount, any unused days to be transferred over to the next year. This is something that you're able to set up and automate. And what we saw with a lot of companies is, especially when it comes down to these types of settings, what's been great is the customization of it. It really helps them quite a bit. First of all, not only the fact that it's automated and that the system is doing all of this by itself, but also the fact that they're able to customize it according to their own needs. So this has been a huge piece as well. A couple of things. So we're talking about, when we're talking about legal necessities, we're talking about these kind of features. When we're talking about additional benefits, then we're talking about something else. We're talking about something like time off in lieu. We talked about compensation time, comp time. This is time off in lieu. There's multiple names that you can call comp time, because she knows this from the many calls we did regarding this feature when we
Our
were.
biggest struggle, naming that
Yes.
feature.
Yes, well, we were researching and trying to introduce it. We decided to go with this name. We're hoping that it's going to satisfy, the requirement all around the world. But that being said, time off in lieu is that comp time, right? They're working overtime and they're able to apply for that overtime to be added back to their quota, so they can take those days off in a different time. So this is that kind of additional benefit that we can talk about. And then another one that we can give as an example within Vacation Tracker as well is seniority entitlement. So this is one of those automations where we're saying, okay, well, depending on how long the user has worked in the company, they can earn additional days. In this case, they're earning 2 additional days after 5 years in the company. We've seen a lot of different companies all around the world use this differently, where we've had them add an additional day for each year that they've worked in the company. We've seen them add 5 days for 5 years, right, and kind of matching that quotation as well. So it's something that has been really popular as well as an additional benefit, as a feature that's tied to additional benefits that we've introduced in our system as well. When it comes down to Vacation Tracker itself, because this webinar has been open for people who are not our clients as well, this is a fully open webinar. If you do have any questions about Vacation Tracker and how everything works, we'll be more than happy to help out. Please reach out to us. Danny from our sales team will be more than happy to take you through a full demo and answer any questions that you have. Okay, so that's just kind of a quick overview of the dashboard. And I believe that we're getting to the Q&A section. We've gone
Yep.
we've gone through everything. We're getting to the Q&A section. There is a question. I know, you're going to
Yes.
remind me. I believe it was from Sam.
Samantha. Samantha. Yep. Correct.
Yes,
She
yes,
had a question about maintaining compliance internationally. So she's talking
yes.
about multiple countries, multiple offices, the whole
Yeah.
spiel.
So this is something that, and thanks, Sam. And again, I know that I know this was a kind
That's
of
the
a late
policy.
entry. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a late entry. We'll make sure to invite you guys a bit earlier next time, and make sure that they're inviting all of our people a bit earlier. We didn't want to bombard you guys with emails. We sent out a couple of announcements at the same time, so we wanted to be respectful. So we definitely are going to make sure this is next time a bit more on time. But that being said, when it comes down to having employees internationally, this is something we're seeing more and more of. Again, post COVID, especially. There's two things that I would probably mention here. The first thing is just a bit of a heads up. It really depends on what kind of employee that employee is. Are they a contractor? Are they a full time employee? And this is something that you definitely should communicate much more clearly with your own legal team, or with whoever can provide the legal advice at your location, because the type of employee makes a difference. For example, they could be contractors, and that are working externally, and you may not have to actually introduce the minimum requirements for them. You can just introduce the minimum requirements of where your company is at, because of the type of employee that they are. Whereas you may have them as full-time employees, and you may have an office. It's not a headquartered office, but it's still an office in an external country where you've hired these employees as a full-time employee. In that case, you are most likely going to have to follow that minimal requirement for their specific location. So I would definitely first check those and get those answers when it comes down to this. We've been asked this multiple times by a lot of companies. So this is the first thing that we advise. And then that's kind of a warning, a heads up. The second piece and the second part of that is kind of best practice. Well, what we saw probably working for a lot of companies in general is gathering the minimal requirements if they are full-time employees and they have to satisfy all these different countries, kind of gathering the minimal requirements. And we've seen a lot of companies just starting to introduce a policy where they're they're introducing a policy that satisfies all the minimal requirements and giving a little bit extra. So they're kind of making that equality all across the board, because it doesn't really matter where you are, you're still working in the same team with the same company. And so they're trying to create that kind of equality. It also makes it significantly easier for HR and accounting to deal with all of that, when it's kind of the same policy all across the board, and they don't have to keep checking what the rules are and what the um, what the setup for that specific location is. So that's probably my best advice when it comes down to this. Do the research for sure and check what kind of employee is it. Make sure that you have all of that covered. And then after you've done that, see if you're able to introduce a policy that satisfies all across the board, if this is something the company is willing to do, if it matches the company's goals, and then go from there.
A good answer, Kat. Pop off. Love that. We have another question from Alexandra that seems super interesting. She says, can you provide examples of some innovative additional benefits that companies have successfully implemented within the constraints of varying legal frameworks?
So what I've already mentioned a few, I think, during the presentation itself, that we talked about, including things such as personal leave. And I think coming back to that, because the fact that it's something that I wouldn't have probably ever used myself, but now I'm starting to realize why you should use it, or why maybe it's a really good leave type to introduce. Another thing that we're actually seeing a lot of companies do is just introduce unlimited leave taking, which is something more and more companies, especially in the IT industry, are introducing, where they're saying, listen, at the end of the day, the employees are able to have that flexibility and take the leave at any time. Whereas, of course, that's still satisfying the minimal requirement, because you're giving them an unlimited, you're counting that, of course, you're giving them the minimum no matter what. But more importantly, you're giving them more flexibility. And so they're introducing more and more unlimited leave types. We're seeing that, again, like I said, various industries, probably IT industry the most, because of course the IT industry is also having more and more offices all around the world and being much more spread out. So this is, I think, probably where that pattern is coming from. But it does make sense. And what was interesting for us over the last few years, what we noticed ourselves is, pre-COVID, you had companies, there's a specific report that you're able to pull from Vacation Tracker that gives you a breakdown of how many days were used and how many days were given to the users. And even with the unlimited quota, you can still see the used days. And this is important for accounting. And so what we were seeing is pre-COVID, you had companies pulling this report to kind of see, okay, well, are they going over the amount they were, that we would like them to go over? Are they taking a bit more than they should, right? And then all of a sudden, post-COVID, you're now seeing companies pulling the leave balance report, where again they're starting to offer unlimited quotas, and they're trying to push their employees to actually go on vacation and go and take leave, and trying to actually use this report to say, okay, well, who hasn't taken vacation in the last 8 months? Let's try to push them before the end of the year so they can actually take some time off and relax and refresh. So this is an interesting switch that happened. It also happened with the introduction of unlimited leave types. I'm assuming it's because of the fact that when you offer the employee, like I just know myself, when you offer a strong policy to me, apparently I don't, you just don't feel like you have to use it, right? And you're just sitting there, you're saying, okay, I got time, right? I'm just gonna do my, I'm gonna do my work. I have a pretty good, I feel safe. I know I can take the leave at any time. I know I can take as much as I want. And then that makes you feel even more comfortable. So that's an interesting piece in general that we notice internally ourselves when it comes down to the unlimited leave types.
I mean, for sure. I feel like there's a lot of factors that stem from it, like the guilt associated with taking PTO, like the competition, fear
For
of like,
sure.
getting behind at work. So yeah, I definitely think that's very subjective as well. But I think we have time for one last question.
Okay.
And Samantha again in the audience is asking, are there any industry reports or data that one can keep track of to keep track of like trends and like changes in legal leave requirements? That's what I believe she's asking.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. My biggest suggestion for this and what we did, first of all, we do for our leave laws page, where we try to gather, we have, you guys will probably be able to see this after the webinar. We're going to send out a very useful tool, again, from our marketing team. Thank you. Regarding the leave laws, and all of the other tools that you're able to use. Leave laws page focuses on more than 100 countries, I think, that we have on that list now, and we do our due diligence, we do our research, and try to put down the most accurate information we have about the leave law requirements for that specific location. That being said, we try our best to use government websites when it comes down to this. So we're specifically focusing on government websites and agencies that are tied to labor itself, because usually this types of policy is tied to labor. And of course, at the same time, we take a look at the kind of most common practices, which you usually can find through a lot of studies. That's the best way that we've kind of seen that information come up. Um, I cannot give you one specific resource or website, because at the end of the day, it really depends where you are and what your location is. Because we are working with companies all over the world, it's hard for me to say, hey, this is where you should go. But every single one of those locations definitely has a government website that should have an agency tied to it, that's tied to labor, that you're able to reach out and say, hey, am I satisfying at least the minimum requirement, right? At the end of the day, the whole point of this is you should be satisfying the minimal requirement in order to ensure that you guys are, protecting the employees and the company itself. But the additional benefit idea is for your own internal use. And what you're doing with the comparison of the two is you're making sure that whatever additional benefit you're introducing, it's still again satisfying the legal requirements, the legal laws, but you're introducing something that's going to help you not only with retention, but being able to compete for new employees and being able to find, basically make everyone feel comfortable about working in the company, make everyone feel safe, and make everyone feel happy. And like we said, especially now in 2024, these types of benefits are becoming more and more tied to work-life balance and to happiness at work, right? A lot more employees are happier about the fact that they're able to take this time off, or they know that the company is there for them when there is some sort of maybe tougher time or some sort of personal time that they need to take off. And this means a lot during this time. So that being said, I think I already answered Samantha's question regarding the sources. This is what we do. you can definitely take a look at also vacation tracker leave loss page for sure, and that would probably be a good place to start. But then definitely make sure that you're comparing it to those kind of government agencies. And if you're looking at specifically talking about introducing additional benefits and you're trying to find a reason as to how you're going to communicate this over to management, then my advice would definitely be taking a look at some of the studies. We found a lot of them while we were doing this research. There's a lot of sources out there. Some studies you may not be able to reach and access. It really depends on what you're searching for. But there's still a lot of good resources out there to be able to kind of build the case for yourself.
Perfect. I guess that wraps up all the questions that I think we have. We're way over time, so I think we're
I
gonna
know,
limit it to those
I
three today.
know. I was about to say we don't really have any time to take any other questions anyways, but um, thank you everyone so much for joining. We hope that the episode was helpful for you. We hope that it was a topic that helped you resolve how you're going to be introducing these additional benefits. I vote for unlimited leave at all times, but that's that's my
Me
preference.
too. Me
Yeah,
too.
exactly. We're going to be joining, we hope you're going to be joining us at our next expert hours. We're planning to do that. We do our office hours once a month, but our expert hours we're going to be doing in a couple of months again. We're going to have a brand new topic, something else to discuss. So watch out for that invite, and we hope you join us then.
See you guys.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank you.
The webinar has ended. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.